Me casually playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, enjoying my time. Me going full ape mode, trying to concrete slam a Final Fantasy VII Rebirth Platinum Trophy that proves absolutely nothing.
This man has gamed too hard. The game played the man. This man is now suffering from gameitis from accomplishing absolutely nothing over the course of 6 days other than a slight dopamine release upon seeing smaller platinum colored image pop up on his screen. He is nothing more than a baboon.
So I went into Final Fantasy VII Rebirth pretty confident that I would snatch up that juicy Platinum Trophy. After all, remakes wasn't too hard. The hardest thing there was to pretty much just go back through the game on hard mode. That's it. There were a few hard fights throughout that playthrough like Hell House and Genova, but aside from that, all pretty doable. Now, prior to going through Rebirth, I didn't scan over the trophy list until I actually finished my first playthrough. It wasn't until then that I realized, oh my god, this is what you're asking of me? In that moment, Square Enix had essentially given me the biggest purple nurple of my life, twisting my nipples in a 1440 degree. Because unlike Remake, it's not just hard mode that is Rebirth's hardest trophy to achieve, but rather the 7-star hotel trophy. Rebirth essentially has a collection of trophies in the game itself. These come in the form of collectibles and they're awarded to the player after completing certain specific things. The game right here is asking you to practically do literally everything, and so it should if it is for a platinum trophy, but my god, 148 hours later, I got it! Oh, I got it! But I am a madman now! 6 days! Among other things, the 7-star hotel trophy requires you to practically perfect every single minigame. If that minigame has a hard mode variant of it, then you're dragging your ass through it. Now, this is fine for the most part because a lot of the minigames aren't overly too challenging in order to get a perfect score to get the collectible so that you can say, hey Johnny, look, I'm a nerd. But there are some here that make me want to unplug my PlayStation 5 and chuck it through a wood chipper. The chicken flying. The chicken flying. I hate the chicken flying. This chocobo can suck my nuts. Now, the first 2 courses of this are fine, but course number 3, oh my god, course number 3. I swear someone at Square Enix was just having a bad day on course number 3 and they decided, you know what, I'm gonna push the player to the absolute limits and make it almost near impossible to finish this. Mixed in with god-awful controls, I swear to god, course number 3 is just a joke from the Square Enix developers themselves! To complete this minigame, you need to fly through every single score ring, and I swear to god, to get the final 2 score rings on the 3rd course is like trying to cook without fire. I'm also glad that I'm not the only one that faced this pain, because looking at the comment section of PowerPix's guide towards this minigame, it's pretty clear that people absolutely hated this. I swear to god, it feels like whoever's job it was to balance the minigames just did not show up to work. I'm convinced nobody playtested the last course. I figured out why this game has 100+ hours of content. I think I'd rather dodge 100 lightning strikes in a row. This minigame is garbage. Yuffie saying, this is great, before every attempt pushed my rage to new heights, unlike the chocobo. Now, there is actually an easier method to this minigame. You can essentially just do a complete U-turn once you fly through this ring, go back to the air booster thing to chuck your chicken back up into the air. By doing this, you'll get a little bit more height in order to reach those final 2 rings. But even still so, with this method in use, no, just no. I want to eat a cement brick. Gears and Gambits and Fort Condor. Okay, you guys should know this. I am an absolute village idiot. I am a Stone Age ape. A strategy game to me is tower defense. Any more than that and I will human combust. Now, admittedly, the normal rounds of both Gears and Gambits and Fort Condor is fine, but you are required to do the hard mode versions of these minigames, and in this moment, I was basically like a passenger on an airplane that is currently going down because for some reason, the pilot has lost consciousness. It is now up to me to fly the plane. The only problem is, I don't know how to fly a plane. I am clueless. Now, the good thing about both of these minigames right here is so long as you have a specific setup and you put the units in at the correct time, you will be all rainbows and daisies. So I googled up a guide because I refused to go through a human torture experiment for any longer than 10 hours, and voila, I completed both minigames. By the way, I think that Gears and Gambits is terrible. That's just because, again, I am a village idiot, but looking at For Condor, while yes, the hard mode versions are definitely challenging, I actually really enjoyed this minigame, and that's coming from someone that doesn't like strategy-based games. The Corral Region Proto Relic quest requires you to take on Kid G's challenges of murdering cactuses. This is yet another minigame that I cried myself to sleep over. Now, the series of these challenges require you to use both Yuffie and Aerith. The Yuffie ones are completely fine. It's pretty straightforward switching between physical attacks and ninjutsu. Everything's pretty much smooth sailing with Yuffie's kit, but taking on a horde of angry cactuses in a certain amount of time as Aerith is pain incarnate. Because you're required to switch between both magical and physical attacks in order to take down these angry cactuses, this is not a fun time with Aerith. She was not designed to be flailing around her stick. You're also required to switch between light and darkness wards as Aerith so that you can take down certain elemental specific cactus.
This is really annoying.
In case you haven't realized, this video is basically one big session, so if this is not your kind of cup of tea, I suggest you click off the video right now. Admittedly, I will say that Kid G's challenges out of the annoying minigames to 100% is probably the least most painful to deal with. I want to burn that chicken and hand it over to Colonel Sanders. Now, looking at the Gold Saucer minigames, all of these are basically fine, actually pretty fun. I got a kick out of all of them. Especially the Coliseum, you are required to also do all of the Coliseum bouts. Oh, I do enjoy me an arena system in my action game, so I ate this up. However, it's not until you get to the 3D Brawler where you realize, yeah, I think I'm gonna go back to playing Plants vs. Zombies. Now, most of the challenges in this are fine, but the Shinra employee and Sephiroth This minigame requires you to have the most keenest of keen eyes. This is basically like being a vulture up in the Sahara Desert trying to pinpoint where a rotting corpse is. And by the way, this vulture is like within the Earth's orbit, like basically in space, trying to scope out a corpse from all the way up there. Yeah, this minigame requires you to animation read. Guard against your enemy's attack by pushing the analog stick in the correct direction. Some of these animations, especially for the Shinra employee and Sephiroth, look so similar. It is so hard to determine where to push my analog stick. Do I push it towards the roof, down towards the ground, up my ass? I don't know, because all of the swings that you are throwing towards my chin basically look the same. What is going to be your saving grace here is the pause buffer technique. Basically, as soon as the enemy is engaging into a punch, you press the pause button. This way you can kind of start to determine, all right, he's going to do an uppercut, he's going to do a low jab, he's going to do a side jab. This pretty much means that this minigame is just one big pause buffer thing. I didn't enjoy the 3D Brawler at all, and I would happily say that this is probably the most painful minigame out of them all. Hell, give me a trophy where I have to sing Under the Sea 100 times in Kingdom Hearts 2. I'll take that any day of the week over Mike Tyson's simulator over here. Everything else here, though, is, yeah, pretty fine. Like, especially the Chocobo racing. Oh my god, we pretty much got Mario Kart 9 before Mario Kart 9. Square Enix cooked a decent, like, kart racer minigame within Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and this is a substantial amount of content here. I loved this. Queen's Blood as well, you are required to basically do all of Queen's Blood, and this just needs to be a game in itself. It is so good, and again, coming from someone that doesn't like strategy games or card-based games, this is just flat out fantastic. I even surprised myself here with this minigame. Like, I thought I was going to flat out hate it and it would be the worst aspect of this game overall, but like I was starting to convince myself that, oh my god, do I have the Millennium Eye within me? Am I that dude? There are also 3 rhythm-based quick time event sort of minigames within this that you are going to have to perfect as well, and all of them were absolutely fine. The piano is the biggest one of all. You have to A-rank all of the piano songs. I know a lot of people are like losing their tits over this. I actually didn't mind this. Until, you know, once you finish Johnny's stash, he then gives you the music sheet for One-Winged Angel. No thanks, Johnny. I would rather choke myself with a can of baked beans. If it ain't part of your checklist, I don't want to know about it. That's your business now, not mine. Because this game is an open world game, there is an open world checklist. That means that you are required, like you do with your shopping list, to go down to the open world supermarket and tick off all of those food items. Yeah, you're gonna be doing basically everything out in the open world, and all of it is, honestly speaking, quite a joy. It's just that traditional cliche kind of open world checklist thing where you're doing all of the different locations, any sort of mini game as part of those locations you will complete, yada 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 yada. It's something that we've seen for the past decade here of gaming. Just like Remake, you are going to be doing all of the side quests here in Rebirth. As I said in my review, I think the side quests of this game are significantly better than they were in Remake. I think this was a big complaint about Remake, how the side content kind of felt fillerish, whereas the side content here in Rebirth feels substantial and it feels like it's actually important. In total, there are 36 meaty side quests to complete, and I didn't have an issue with any of them aside from the chicken one. I want to know like how this side quest even came about within the brainstorming session of the staff members at Square Enix to be like, alright guys, we need some side quest content, pitch your ideas. Then you got Billy Bob there in the corner just like, alright, in the Gongaga region there is an old lady who has lost her chickens. It is up to Cloud and the gang to get those chickens back. We're going to include a unique mechanic where you have a tin attached to a string and you need to coerce the chicken into following you with this tin attached to a string.
Billy Bob, that's it. You are getting a promotion. Get the developers on speed dial ASAP.
It was on this day that I was made fool of by a chicken. However, it's quest 36 that kind of asks a little bit too much of the player. Now at this point in the game, you've probably done all of the gold source minigames, achieved the highest score, got the best reward. Wait a minute though, quest 36 swoops in and it's like, you thought you were finished with these minigames? Think again. The Shinra employee doesn't believe that you have what it takes to become
the ultimate party animal.
It's up to you to prove to the Shinra working monkey that you are indeed the loosest goose on the block. This means that you will go through all of the gold saucer mini games again, but now with an extreme hard score to achieve. Now again, this isn't overly too bad. I quite enjoyed going back through the chocobo racing, as well as doing stuff like the G-Bike, although this was bugged with the recent update. I think people are stuck on this. Thankfully, I finished this before the update, but this is what gives you access to Sephiroth in the 3D brawler, along with the fact that the Shinra employee's 3D brawler fighter is ridiculous, like a Pro League Tekken player. However though, most of the side quest content in Rebirth was an absolute joy to play through, much better than what we saw in Remake. Another big boy trophy in this game is the hard mode playthrough. This was the big substantial trophy of Remake, and it kind of is a substantial trophy again here in Rebirth, but I honestly found the hard mode playthrough not to be too difficult. In total, I think the boss that I died the most on was Final Sephiroth, as well as that god-forsaken dragon in the ancient temple. And when I say died the most on, I mean like 3 or 4 deaths, I believe. I think it was 3 deaths there on the dragon, 4 deaths on Final Sephiroth. Don't get me wrong though, it's not a total walk through the park. I was put into a lot of situations where I was switching around my materia and having to like kind of think a little bit more so about the encounters that I was coming across. But because you've already got the knowledge from your first playthrough and you keep everything from that first initial playthrough, hard mode isn't too bad. Oh, but now we're getting to the main course. Without a single doubt, the hardest challenge throughout the entirety of the Rebirth Platinum is completing absolutely every single one of Chadley's combat challenges. And with just how ferocious these additional challenges are, I'm convinced with all of the data that Chadley has been accumulating over the course of time of helping him out within both Remake and Rebirth, I'm convinced that he'll probably end up being an Ultra Giga Super Boss for the end of Part 3. I am shaking in my boots just thinking about it. Giga Ultra Chadley. There are a ton of combat simulator challenges now here in Rebirth compared to what there was in 7 Remake. You'll eventually unlock the Legendary and Brutal challenges, and the game is not lying to you with those fancy, descriptive, expressive words. These are f***ing hard. Now, it's up to you when you do them. You can do them at the end of your first playthrough, or if you want to, you can go through a hard mode playthrough, get the manuscripts, and further strengthen your characters a little bit. Continue to upgrade your materia, which I highly recommend doing before taking these on, or you can just do these challenges. Good luck. In a way, if you do manage to finish at least all of the legendary challenges, it will make your hard mode playthrough, which honestly speaking isn't really that hard anyway, just a little bit easier, as you will get the this necklace. This piece of equipment, it's the best in the game. It gives you limit as soon as you get into a combat encounter, and then just continually fills your limit gauge as you're running around swinging your stick. Now, you're going to be swapping and swapping the materia like the materia is going out of fashion. You're going to be like a circus juggler, juggling that materia in and out into sockets, doing this build, that build, to try figure out the correct build in order to slay enemies you've already slayed 100 times over. Yet these ones, for some reason, are clearly chugging on too many protein shakes. The brutal challenges will have you fighting foes that you've fought previously before in a group of 3. They're a little bit stronger this time around, and there's a total of 10 rounds per challenge. The infuriating thing about both of the legendary and brutal challenges is that it does take a while to progress through each of the rounds, just because unless you have the right materia set up, it takes a while to take down these enemies. If you die, let's say on like round 8, oh my god, it's painful. You've now got to go back through 18 minutes of sword swinging, fist throwing, bullet pumping combat to get back up to the point that you are struggling with. You can do all of the previous rounds fine, but it's that round 8 or round 9 that you absolutely continue to die on. It would be so good if you could just quickly jump to the rounds that you've furthest gotten up to, but of course part of the challenge is being able to have that correct build that will see you through all 10 rounds. And this is actually one of the things that I kind of found out about with the combat on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which I guess harkens back to the original combat system of a traditional Final Fantasy game, is that it's all about your build. It doesn't so much require just raw skill when it comes to the action side of this game. Yes, of course, perfect blocking is definitely a skill-based thing in this game, and of course character position, switching between your characters to make sure they're out of harm's way, and knowing exactly when to attack is all kind of skill related, but for the most part, your success is primarily going to come from your materia setup. I would say they are pretty doable, like all of them up until Rulers of the Outer Worlds. Oh my god. 5 anus-twisting rounds of Kujata and Phoenix, Titan and Bahamut, Alexander and Odin. Then you go to Gilgamesh. Then you have to go to Sephiroth. Oh, and this is not just any normal version of Sephiroth. He's got a new move where he will strangulate you, lock you into place, and perform a f***ing limit attack. The only way to avoid this attack is to perfect guard. But hang on a minute. Most of the time, your computer-controlled allies will not do this. This means that you have to ensure to switch to your allies when Sephiroth is targeting them. If you aren't good with your perfect guards here in this fight, you will be punished. You'll be thrown on the ground, spat on, someone will steal your dog, raid your pantry.
You're gonna die.
Rulers of the Outer World is hard, like really, really hard. Now, the brutal challenges are mainly focused on solo fights. So the game is sort of asking you, okay, at this point, you know how to control all of the characters pretty well confidently. Surprisingly, aside from actually Cloud's brutal challenge, which I think the game is basically thinking, okay, Cloud's probably the character you've played the most of, so let's make his like harder compared to the rest of the party members, but most of these are actually fine. It's not until you eventually get to Bonds of Friendship. Oh my god, Bonds of Friendship. Just nuke me and my house right now. Bonds of Friendship is a team-up fight with both Zack and Cloud. Pretty cool, right? Because we don't really get to control Zack all too often throughout the game. Problem number one, though, here with this is Zac is a party member that you cannot customize, so you are forced into having to use the setup that is already given to him. Now, there's also a Sephiroth version of this, though the Sephiroth version is actually pretty easy, mainly because Sephiroth is a lot stronger than Zac. The kit that's given to him is a lot better. He is given re-raise, which re-raise is just so good. Zac doesn't have this, that's a problem. But you shouldn't struggle too much with Dad next to you. It's when you have Zac where the problems start to occur. And without a doubt, I think that personally Bonds of Friendship is the hardest challenge in the entire game, more so than Rulers of the Outer Worlds. I struggled on this for days. It was just basically getting to the point where it was like, okay, I'm gonna have to put the controller down, come back tomorrow, cool down a bit, and retry. And I think it took me about 3 days worth of retrying, though I wasn't spending hours on end retrying each day. It did take me a little while to actually conquer this. The build that I ended up using here was essentially a magic-focused Aeroga build with HP and MP absorb on Aeroga, mainly because a lot of the enemies that you're versing throughout these rounds are all weak to that of Aero. And with the HP and MP absorption on Aeroga, you will get a substantial amount of both HP and MP back every single cast you do. You've almost pretty much got like infinite MP for most of the rounds here. To ensure you're hitting the highest you possibly can, be sure to use Cloud's Prime Mode ability. This allows him to get the Berserk status buff. As well as that, you'll be utilizing Zac as a caster to heal as well as buff Cloud by using Faith, which increases magic damage. And Genji gloves are absolutely required for Cloud to break the 9,999 damage limit so that you can start hitting 40 to 60,000. This build absolutely slaps. I will put the build in the description down below if you are needing this, if you are struggling on this fight. I highly recommend it. Now, while the legendary and brutal fights are certainly a very tough challenge, and this is a platinum where the dopamine release is so high once you finally achieve it, because of course these challenges throw you to the ground and make you purple in an instant. So when you finally conquer it, you feel pretty damn good about yourself. You're like, damn Kyle, I do be gaming. One thing I have to make absolutely clear though is this is still not the Square Enix Ultimate Challenge. While this is certainly still hard, Yozora, without a doubt, in Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind is one of the hardest things I have ever had to do. That's even taking into account some of the hardest challenges in both Bloodborne and Elden Ring. Obviously a little bit of a different case though. These challenges are required for the Rebirth Platinum, whereas if you look at something like Yozora, he's just an additional DLC trophy. Thank God he's not required for that Kingdom Hearts 3 Platinum Trophy. Overall though, the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth Platinum Trophy is one that is hard to achieve. Those mini-games are some of the most infuriating things I have ever experienced in video games, period. On top of that, the combat challenges are right up there on the difficulty scale. I think it's actually kind of cool though that we definitely do have an ultimate challenge for this game. Whereas if you look at Final Fantasy VII Remake, it didn't really have an ultimate challenge per se until of course Weiss was added in with the Integrate DLC. This Platinum Trophy bet me up 13 million ways from Sunday, but I have come out victorious. This is definitely a Platinum Trophy that deserves the title of Platinum Trophy. You do be gaming if you have achieved this. Alright guys, that is my Final Fantasy VII Rebirth Platinum experience. Do be sure to let me know in the comment section down below if you have achieved this bad boy, or has the game got the better of you. I would love to know. However dudes, be sure to subscribe to the channel to keep up with everything that's going on here. Check out my other social media platforms, links in the description down below. Thank you so much to the turkey-tastic patrons. You guys are awesome. I'm Cynical, hopefully having a fantastic day, and we'll talk real soon.